Imagine a place where every minute you spend listening and reflecting doesn't just change your day, but the entire course of your life. Here, you'll learn how to turn your attention inward and take real control over your destiny, because true power never comes from the outside. It is built from within. Every detail of this video is designed to guide you step by step on this journey of self-mastery and courage, and missing even a single part could mean overlooking a vital lesson. So follow closely, absorb every word, every insight, because it's on this path that deep transformation happens. And if you truly want to grow and unlock your potential, this is the channel where it starts. Don't forget to leave a like. It shows you ready to act and continue transforming your life. In the shadows of every human heart lives a question that burns, even when silence tries to bury it. Why do we feel powerless in a world that we should command from within? No one says this aloud, yet every night it echoes behind closed eyes, in the space where fear meets memory. We chase distractions, victories, admiration, but when the noise falls away, the only battlefield left is the one inside ourselves. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events," and still, most of us live as if the external world is the master, and we are nothing more than obedient shadows. Our chains are not visible, yet we carry them forged by anger, expectations, and the fear of not being enough. And so, we stand here asking, what does it take to break free? There was once a man who measured life by everything outside of him: applause, victories, the eyes of those who praised and envied him. The world fed his ego, but every night he returned to a room filled with silence sharp enough to cut through illusions. He thought he was strong, yet his emotions moved him like a storm moves a ship without a captain. Then one day, after losing everything he believed to find him, he read a line from Epictetus: "No man is free who is not master of himself." Those words didn't comfort him, they wounded him. They didn't save him, they exposed him. For the first time in his life, he understood that emotional chaos wasn't proof of passion, but proof of slavery. As days turned into nights and nights into months, he stopped asking how to fix the world and began asking how to fix himself. He sat with his anger, his jealousy, his fear, not to feed them, but to examine them. As Seneca once advised, how much better to heal than to avenge. It wasn't easy. His instincts screamed to react, to blame, to fight every discomfort. But instead, he watched, he measured, he questioned. Every destructive emotion he mastered became a fallen enemy at his feet. He didn't become colder, he became clearer. He didn't stop feeling, he stopped drowning in what he felt. And slowly, the chaos that once ruled him became silent. Not because life grew easier, but because he became stronger. There is a transformation that the world cannot see, yet it is greater than any achievement that cameras could record. It is the moment when a person no longer needs victory to feel whole, nor validation to feel worthy. It is the moment when fate stops being a threat and becomes a collaborator. The Stoics never taught us to avoid pain, they taught us to remain unshaken by it. They never promised comfort, they promised strength. We were never meant to be spectators of our emotions, but their commanders. And suddenly, the man who once sought control over the world discovered something terrifying and liberating: control over himself. He returned to life not with pride, but with quiet certainty. The same people who once defined his happiness now had no power over it. Loss did not destroy him. Failure did not shame him. Criticism did not poison him. He became immovable not because nothing touched him, but because nothing owned him. And for the first time, he understood that true freedom was never about escaping life. It was about facing it armed with inner discipline. The world didn't change, yet everything was different, because he was different. And anyone who crossed his path felt it: not authority, not superiority, but calm strength, the kind that inspires others to rise rather than kneel. We are not different from him. His struggle is ours, the war against the mind that fears suffering more than it desires greatness. Every one of us stands before the same choice: remain prisoners of emotions, or rise above them. The ancient philosophers didn't ask us to reject feeling, they asked us to rule over it. And there is something inside all of us that recognizes this truth instantly, even if we've spent a lifetime hiding from it. Because deep down we know, the world cannot break a person who commands himself. So now, let the silence speak again, the same silence that began this story. The question that echoed in the darkness returns: why do we feel powerless in a world we should command from within? The answer no longer hides in mystery. We feel powerless because we have been trying to control everything but ourselves. The power we seek does not come from the outside. It comes from discipline, from restraint, from courage, from the willingness to face every inner storm without surrendering to it. Freedom is not handed to us, it is forged. Turn your attention inward and transform the course of your life. The battlefield is not the world, it is the self. The victory is not applause, it is inner mastery. And the legacy is not fame, it is unshakable peace. Those who learn to conquer themselves stop fearing anything that life can do to them. And when the final storm arrives, as it does for all of us, the ones who live by this truth will not tremble. They will stand, unbroken, because the world can only defeat those who abandon their own command. And we were never meant to live defeated. There is a moment in every life when the world demands proof, not with words, but with trials. After the man found mastery over himself, fate did not reward him with peace. Instead, it tested him with everything he once feared most. People returned to challenge him. Opportunities rose only to collapse. Doubt whispered in the darkness like a familiar ghost. Yet he remained still inside, remembering the warning of Seneca. Circumstances do not make the man. They only reveal him to himself. He understood that strength is never granted, it is verified. And so he faced every blow not as punishment, but as confirmation. The storms that once shattered him now passed through him like wind against stone. The transformation unsettled those around him. Some admired it and searched for the source of his calm. Others resented it, because nothing they did could provoke him anymore. They insulted him, he stayed composed. They rejected him, he stayed whole. They doubted him, he continued forward. People don't fear the strong, they fear the ones who can't be controlled. Epictetus once taught that no one harms us without our consent, and he, without speaking, began to show the living proof of that idea. His mastery threatened the fragile illusions of others, and soon they united with one purpose, to break what they could not bend. One night, a friend turned betrayer confronted him with venom, determined to destroy everything he had rebuilt. Accusations, lies, and heavy silence filled the room like smoke. The old version of him would have exploded, but the new one simply watched, measured, and remained present. Every sentence thrown was meant to ignite him, yet it only revealed the chaos consuming the other man. Plato wrote that the first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. In that moment, he witnessed its truth with living clarity. He did not win by crushing his opponent, he won by refusing to abandon his command. He walked away not because he was weak, but because his self-respect was no longer for sale. Yet something unexpected happened after that night. Alone in the quiet, strength did not feel triumphant, it felt heavy. Mastery over emotion does not eliminate pain. It simply prevents pain from driving us. Even with control, he felt disappointment, sadness, and loneliness. But instead of running from them, he allowed them to exist without becoming his rulers. He wrote in a journal, like Marcus Aurelius once did, emptying his mind onto paper without shame or fear. As he wrote, a realization emerged. Being unshaken is not the same as being untouched. Stoicism had never asked him to stop feeling, only to stop obeying destructive feelings. There is a paradox hidden inside inner strength. The stronger we become, the more the world challenges us, not because it hates us, but because it tries to verify whether our discipline is real. And so, the man accepted that mastery was not an ending, but a lifelong practice. Every dawn became a drill of self-command. Every interaction became a chance to reinforce clarity over impulse. Instead of reacting to chaos, he redirected it. Instead of demanding that life become easier, he built himself to become harder to break. The change spread through his relationships, his decisions, his work, not loudly, not dramatically, but inevitably. Soon, something remarkable happened. People who once mocked him began seeking him in silence. Not for advice, not for validation, but simply to stay near the calm he carried. They didn't understand his inner journey, yet they felt the energy of someone who no longer fought the world, and no longer fought himself. Humans instinctively move toward steady ground, especially when drowning. And so, without preaching or persuading, he became a lighthouse in the storms of others, not by intention, but by existence. The greatest lessons are not taught, they are demonstrated. That was when he understood the deeper truth. Self-mastery is not only for the one who achieves it, it becomes strength for everyone who witnesses it. By breaking his own chains, he gave others the courage to break theirs. By controlling his emotions, he showed others they could do the same. Courage is contagious. Discipline is contagious. Freedom is contagious. It spreads quietly, changing those who are ready to awaken. And perhaps that is why the ancient philosophers insisted that the greatest service we can offer the world begins within, because every victory inside us becomes a possibility inside someone else. Time passed, and the man's quiet strength became the mirror that many feared to face. Not because it judged them, but because it exposed what they might become if they stopped running from themselves. Some approached him with admiration, others with envy, but all of them sensed the same thing. He had built an inner kingdom that nothing external could invade. Yet even in this newfound stability, one question haunted him in the silent hours of the night. What is the purpose of self-mastery if the world continues to collapse around us? The ancient texts never promised glory, yet they hinted at something deeper. Seneca once wrote, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior," and the man began to wonder if such victory was meant not only to endure life, but to transform it. Still, doubt lingered like fog, and he knew the journey was not complete. One morning, he met a young woman who carried the same chains he once wore. Her life was ruled by fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. She confessed that she envied his calm and believed she could never achieve it. But instead of advising her or claiming wisdom, he simply shared something that could not be debated: his scars. He told her of the nights when anger decided his words, when envy determined his worth, when fear controlled his choices. And then he showed her the battle map of his transformation, not as a sermon, but as a gesture of truth. She listened silently, tears gathering like rain, realizing that strength had not always been his nature. It had been his decision, and for the first time in years, hope flickered inside her. As she left, he felt something shift inside him, a realization that the journey inward was not isolation, but connection. Stoicism had never been about fleeing humanity. It was about returning to it without being shattered by it. Marcus Aurelius had led armies and ruled an empire, yet wrote privately, "What we do now echoes in eternity." The man understood that strength was not meant to stay locked within the self. It was meant to radiate, to silently guide others toward their own liberation. He didn't save the young woman, he just lit the torch. She would have to carry herself. And in that moment, he felt a purpose rising inside him, stronger than fear, stronger than pride, to live in a way that made others believe they could rise too. But fate, as always, returned to test conviction. One evening, news arrived that shattered the community. Tragedy had struck suddenly, leaving everyone in disbelief. Grief tore people apart. Blame, anger, panic erupted like wildfire. Eyes turned to him. They waited for his collapse, as they always had in the past. But instead of pretending strength or denying pain, he simply breathed, acknowledged the weight, and stood present among them. He reminded them, without speeches, without theatrics, that feeling pain does not mean surrendering to it. In the middle of chaos, he was a pillar, not untouched, but unwavering. It wasn't courage without fear. It was courage in spite of fear. And those who witnessed it began to steady themselves too. Not because he told them to be strong, but because he showed them it was possible. The tragedy that struck their community did not fade quickly. It lingered like winter, long after the world expected spring to return. People who once walked with certainty now moved like ghosts, haunted by memories of what was lost, and by fears of what might come next. The man felt every vibration of this collective grief, and though he did not collapse beneath it, he did not escape from it either. He understood the delicate balance between acknowledging pain and becoming ruled by it. And so, he watched over those around him the way a lighthouse watches the sea, not controlling the waves, but refusing to disappear because of them. He remembered the teaching of Seneca. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The storm was real, yes, yet the greatest damage came from the visions of suffering that people replayed over and over in their minds. Their pain was deep, but their fear was deeper, and he knew only example, not speeches, could quiet such torment. But inside him, another transformation was unfolding, a quieter one. The discovery that the more he studied others, the more he understood himself. Each conversation with someone grieving led him further into his own unanswered questions. Why do we cling so violently to what is temporary? Why do we expect life to protect us from loss, when life itself is built upon it? The young woman he had once helped returned to him, seeking guidance again. This time her eyes were heavy, not with fear, but with sorrow. She confessed that she did not know how to stay strong when everything felt meaningless. He listened, without judgment, without pretending to have all the answers. And then he shared with her a truth he had learned on the other side of despair. Meaning is not found in avoiding pain, but in enduring it with purpose. The obstacle is the way. He quoted from Marcus Aurelius, and although the words were ancient, they landed inside her like a new discovery. Suffering did not prove that life had failed her. It proved that she still cared, that she still loved, that she was still alive. Days turned to weeks, and people slowly resumed their routines, though grief lingered in the air like dust that refused to settle. The man returned to work, to habits, to exercise, to reflection, not in denial of tragedy, but because discipline was his anchor in an unpredictable world. He took long walks at dusk, when the horizon seemed to burn and the world fell silent enough for his mind to speak. The question that had once haunted him, what is the purpose of self-mastery, if the world continues to collapse around us, returned in those moments, and as he reflected on all that had unfolded, the faint outline of an answer began to emerge. Self-mastery was not a shield against hardship. It was not a formula for happiness. It was preparation to stand tall when life tries to bring us to our knees. Without it, suffering becomes destruction. With it, suffering becomes transformation. One evening, the community gathered in a small hall to honor what they had lost. The air felt thick with memory, guilt, and longing. Many spoke of how they wished they could have done more, been more, said more. Regret cut deeper than grief. When it was his turn to speak, the room fell still, not because he sought attention, but because everyone sensed they needed his calm. He did not try to offer comfort, nor did he pretend to erase pain. He spoke of courage, not the heroic kind sung in legends, but the kind lived in silence. The courage to wake up when the heart begs for sleep, the courage to keep loving when loss tells us it is safer to feel nothing, the courage to continue, even without promises of reward. He reminded them that every life is borrowed, and every connection is temporary, but none of it is meaningless, unless we choose to forget what it taught us. And for the first time in months, the room felt like it could breathe. Later that night, alone, he finally understood the full purpose of the path he had begun long ago, not to be invincible, not to be admired, not to be perfect. He realized that self-mastery exists, so we can live fully even when life is cruel, love deeply even when loss is inevitable, and lead others without needing to control them. Stoicism had been painted by the world as emotionless, but now he saw it clearly. It was not the absence of emotion, it was the absence of slavery to emotion. The world may hurt us, but we do not have to become the hurt. The world may fail us, but we do not have to become the failure. The world may take from us everything we once believed defined us, but it can never take the character we build from within. The next morning, before sunrise, he stood outside and watched the sky shift from darkness to amber. The world was unchanged, unpredictable, fragile, temporary, yet something inside him was different, a realization deep enough to steady him for the rest of his life. The meaning of self-mastery is not survival, it is contribution. We train our minds not so that life becomes easier, but so that we become strong enough to help others carry their own weight when the world becomes unbearable. We sharpen our discipline, not for pride, but for service. Strength is not the destination, it is the responsibility. And in that moment, the question that once tormented him, what is the purpose of self-mastery if the world continues to collapse around us, finally answered itself. The purpose is this: when the world collapses, someone must remain standing. Stoicism is not a philosophy for perfect days, it is a philosophy for disaster. It is not a belief for those untouched by tragedy. It is a belief for those who have been broken and refuse to stay broken. The man looked toward the horizon and understood that life would continue to test him, to take from him, to surprise him, but he no longer feared it, because everything outside of him could collapse. And still, no one could reach the fortress he had built within. And now he knew the deepest truth of all: strength is not the end of the journey. Strength is the beginning of responsibility. And he was ready. In the months that followed, life moved forward with the same unpredictability it always had. Victories followed by losses, beginnings followed by endings, joy followed by sorrow. But something had changed in the man, something deep enough to alter the trajectory of every decision, every emotion, every silence. He no longer lived waiting for peace to arrive from the outside. He carried it within him like a disciplined fire, controlled but powerful. And because of that, the world around him slowly shifted as well. People no longer approached him seeking advice, they approached him seeking presence. When someone sat with him, they felt their own chaos settle, not because he removed their problems, but because he reminded them of their ability to face them. It wasn't magic, nor wisdom, nor charisma. It was the unspoken message that every human is capable of self-command. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And that is what he had become, not a preacher of philosophy, but a living demonstration of it. Still, the world did not soften. Temptations returned to test him, moments where anger begged to be unleashed, where pride invited him to feel superior, where comfort whispered that he had already done enough. These tests were not dramatic. They came disguised in ordinary moments: a careless insult, an unfair accusation, an opportunity to prove someone wrong. Each time he felt the pull of ego press against the discipline he had built, and each time he remembered that self-mastery is not a reward earned once, but a duty renewed daily. Epictetus had warned that the easiest prison to escape is the one built by others, and the hardest to break is the one built by the self. And so the man remained vigilant, not because he feared the world, but because he respected the constant danger of forgetting who he had become. One afternoon, while walking through the market square, he encountered a man he had once envied, someone who once embodied everything he thought he needed to feel worthy: applause, wealth, admiration. But now that man's life lay in ruins, abandoned by friends, stripped of reputation, swallowed by regret. People walked past him without recognition. Success is adored until it disappears. The fallen man begged for validation, desperate to be seen again. The old version of our protagonist would have admired him once, envied him deeply, and later celebrated his downfall in secret. But now, envy had been replaced with clarity. He helped the man without judgment, not because he felt pity, but because he recognized the same battle he once fought. The battle of believing our value depends on the eyes of others. For a moment, their eyes met not as victor and defeated, but as two humans who had both learned how fragile the world becomes when the inside is weak. His act of compassion did not go unnoticed. Whispered praises began to spread, people calling him wise, admirable, strong, and ironically, that was the most dangerous moment of all. Admiration is more seductive than hatred. It destroys from the inside in silence. Praise is a subtle poison, a weapon disguised as affection. The man knew this, and when compliments poured in, he felt the trap tightening. Pride is simply a new kind of slavery. To rely on approval is to return to the chains he once broke. And so, he thanked people with humility and returned immediately to his routines, to discipline, to reflection, to self-honesty. Strength had never been about being flawless. It had always been about refusing to be owned by what feels good or what feels terrible. Freedom is neutral. It is neither praise nor insult. It is the ability to stay yourself. The seasons changed again. Leaves died and returned, like memories that refuse to disappear but lose their power with time. The young woman he once helped became stronger each day. Her eyes no longer reflected fragility but determination. She confided that she feared losing her progress one day, feared returning to the version of herself she hated. He told her the truth. Everyone is capable of falling again, but that does not erase who they have become. Failure is not a reset, it is a continuation. She did not need to be perfect, she only needed to remain honest with herself. Remember, he said, discipline is not a cage, it is a direction. She left with steady steps, no longer searching externally for salvation, her fire was now set. Then came the night when the man was tested more brutally than ever before, not by the world, not by tragedy, not by others, but by himself. A memory resurfaced, sharp and heavy, something he had buried for years, guilt. A moment from his past, when he had abandoned someone who needed him because he had been too consumed with his own ambition. It hit him with the force of a storm, stripping away every layer of strength he had built. For hours he grappled with self-loathing, with shame, with regret. Every emotion he had mastered returned at once, demanding that he collapse. In the darkness, he realized that conquering emotions once does not guarantee victory forever. Self-mastery is not immortality, it is vigilance. And so, he breathed through the pain, wrote in his journal, and allowed himself to feel everything without letting it define him. Eventually, the storm settled, not because the guilt disappeared, but because he refused to run from it. By sunrise, he had reached a realization that would mark the true completion of his transformation. Strength is not the absence of weakness. Strength is choosing the higher path even when weakness screams loudly. Courage is not the elimination of fear. Courage is action, despite fear. Wisdom is not born from perfection, it is born from the constant pursuit of self-correction. And finally, he understood why no Stoic philosopher ever claimed to be flawless. Because the purpose was never to become unbreakable, but to become unbreaking. The world had not made him stronger, he had made himself stronger. And from this point forward, life could challenge him, test him, tempt him, hurt him, and still, it would never own him again. He walked to the edge of town and watched the horizon again, not seeking meaning, not seeking signs, not seeking approval, simply observing. He whispered the lesson that had taken years of pain, loss, growth, and discipline to understand. Turn your attention inward and transform the course of your life. Everything outside is temporary, unpredictable, uncontrollable. But what we build inside, the discipline, the self-respect, the clarity, the courage, becomes the only thing that the world can never steal from us. And so, the path continued, not toward perfection, but toward deeper command of the self. He did not smile, but he felt peace. The story of his transformation was not an ending, it was a beginning, and the beginning belonged fully to him. The months turned into years, and the man's life became a quiet testament to the power of inner discipline. He was no longer the person who measured his worth by applause or envy. Time tested him, as it does all humans, with sickness, betrayal, and disappointment. Yet each challenge he faced reinforced the truth he had learned. Mastery over oneself is the foundation upon which all meaningful life is built. Epictetus had once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." And in this ongoing journey, the man realized that self-mastery is never complete, that each day is a test, each thought an opportunity to strengthen or weaken the self. The world continues to change, but the disciplined mind remains an immovable witness, observing, adapting, enduring without succumbing. And in that unwavering vigilance, he found freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from resentment, freedom from the ceaseless pull of trivial desires. One morning, he encountered a child crying in the market square, the kind of wail that pierces the soul because it is pure, raw, and uncontrollable. Most adults rush to silence it or distract it, but he stopped and simply observed. The child's anguish mirrored the chaos that had once lived inside him, sudden, explosive, unreasoned. He knelt beside the child and held space for the emotion, showing that presence, not action, can be a profound teacher. He thought of Seneca's lesson, true happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future. In comforting the child, he realized that mastery is not only for enduring adult hardships, but also for guiding others, especially those who have yet to learn the lessons life demands. Strength becomes contagious, quietly shaping the world, not by force, but by example. The young woman he had once mentored returned again, now fully aware of her own capabilities. She had faced her own storms, had lost and rebuilt, had trembled and persisted. In her eyes, he saw the reflection of his own journey, the echo of someone who had learned to govern themselves despite the relentless chaos of life. She told him that she had begun teaching others what she had learned, not as doctrine, but as demonstration, echoing the Stoic idea that he who instructs by example is more effective than he who instructs by words. The realization settled over him like dawn breaking after a long night. Self-mastery does not exist in isolation. Its true power is revealed when it inspires others to rise, to confront their fears, and to reclaim authority over their own minds. Yet life, relentless and indifferent, would not let him rest in complacency. One evening, news arrived of a disaster in a nearby town. Floods had claimed homes, livelihoods, and hope. Most people reacted with panic and despair. Some ran away, others blamed the authorities or the world itself. He, however, recognized this as another opportunity, not to act heroically in the traditional sense, but to practice the principles he had lived. He mobilized quietly, offering assistance not as charity, but as a demonstration of resilience and reason. He remained calm, efficient, and deliberate, embodying the truth he had lived. Adversity tests character, but it cannot dictate it. People began to mirror his composure, their panic transforming into purposeful action. He realized that courage spread silently, like a contagion stronger than fear itself. In these moments of crisis, he understood something crucial. Mastery is not a solitary pursuit. The world challenges us, yes, but it also provides the opportunity to refine what we have built inside. Strength is most powerful when it is exercised in the service of others, not merely preserved for oneself. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "A man's worth is measured by the obstacles he overcomes." The man saw that his worth was not in the absence of obstacles, but in how he faced them with deliberate composure, with unwavering focus, and with the clarity of purpose that Stoic discipline offers. He became a living example of the philosophy he once studied quietly, a presence that taught more than words could ever hope to convey. One night, as he walked under the stars, he reflected on all the lives he had touched and all the internal battles he had fought. He realized that the true measure of mastery is not in perfection, but in persistence, the commitment to return to oneself after every failure, after every emotional upheaval, after every temptation to surrender. Epictetus had said, "No great thing is created suddenly. The journey to self-command is the same. It is forged slowly, repeatedly, often painfully. But each trial, each reflection, each act of courage compounds, building an inner fortress that no external storm can dismantle." And in that realization, he finally understood the last piece of the puzzle. The purpose of all discipline, all reflection, all struggle, is not only survival, but transformation of oneself and of those touched by one's example. The horizon burned red as dawn arrived. The man knew that life would continue to challenge him in ways unseen, testing his patience, his courage, his compassion. But he no longer feared the future, because he understood the fundamental truth. The world cannot own the mind that governs itself. Strength is not an end. It is a tool. Courage is not a gift. It is a choice. And discipline is not a burden. It is freedom, he whispered to himself, as the wind carried his words over the waking town. Turn your attention inward and transform the course of your life. This was the lesson that began with his first question, and it was the lesson that would continue indefinitely. Life may bend, twist, and strike, but the fortress of self-command endures.